So, hello and welcome to another session of India Employer Forum's Samvaad, a dialogue series where we bring together leaders to explore the changing world of work. So, I'm Balasubramanian A, Senior Vice President and Business Head at TeamLease, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's conversation on a CEO's guide to navigating economic uncertainty and market disruptions. For those joining us for the first time, India Employer Forum is a not for profit community that discusses, understands, and documents the many aspects of employment, employability, and ease of doing business as we look ahead to India at 100. TeamLease is the knowledge partner, providing expertise, research, and insights while supporting IEF's events, webinars, and initiatives. And to just set the context about today's conversation, the past few years have been a masterclass in disruption for Indian businesses, but global businesses as a whole and Indian businesses as well. The COVID shock redefined the workplace, and in many ways, a lot of people thought that was a lot of uncertainty. But in my mind, COVID was a certainty. You knew exactly what it was about, you knew what steps we had to take, and there was actually a lot of certainty. But ever since then, a lot of things have happened. The pace at which digital transformation has accelerated, normalization of hybrid working models, all of these things actually happened literally overnight. And just as recovery gained momentum, the Russia-Ukraine war, which broke out back in Feb 22, it's been going on for 3.5 years. It disrupted global supply chains and energy prices, challenging cost structures across industries. Now, soon after that, the US trade policies under the Trump administration, including a steep 50% tariff on select Indian exports, reshaped global competitiveness and market access as well. Now, back home, the rollout of GST 2.0 in September, slashing slabs and simplifying compliance is intended to inject a 2.5 lakh crore fiscal stimulus into the economy. While these reforms aim to stabilize our macro fundamentals, organizations continue to navigate volatility. Global buyers demand flexibility, cash flows are volatile, and talent expectations have permanently shifted. And then there is the big bad, which is AI, and the world of work is in a lot of trepidation just thinking of what the future holds in store, a future which is uh, largely built around AI. So, together, all these events have redefined what it means to lead, requiring a balance of agility and prudence, and a focus on both people and business continuity. So, to discuss these issues today, we have with us the formidable Mr. Sandip Ghose, Managing Director and CEO of MP Birla Cement. Sandip brings over 4 decades of experience, having worked with organizations such as Kimberly Clark, Unilever, ABP Group, and Lafarge Holcim. Beyond his professional work, he is an active public thinker and a respected media voice as well, regularly sharing his insights on businesses, policy, and society. It's great to have you over, Mr. Sandeep. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me over, but you intimidate me by describing me as formidable. I'm far from that. I'm also somebody who's trying to make sense in a not just unpredictable, but something which is very, difficult to understand is a very mild way of saying it. Environment or today's world, which is, there, and it's a non-linear kind of situation, disruptive, as you said. So we are all in the same boat, and I don't think I'll have insights which can be said to be in any form definitive. It's no longer knowledge is not sacrosanct, experience is not sacrosanct. Today's experience becomes tomorrow, it becomes totally invalid. So we have to live from day to day, hour to hour. That's something maybe Mr. Trump has taught us also in recent times. Each day you have to take afresh. So that's where we stand. But only comment I'd make right in the beginning, I think you talked about COVID being, not so unpredictable. I'm not too sure about that. Now that we look back on the COVID times, it seems like, it's a blur in all our thing. It is sort of memory has faded in that kind of a way. But if you were to see at that point in time, it was not just a question of disruption, etc. It was also a question of a very insecure, fragile world, fragile life, One didn't know not just about environment, one didn't know about individuals, what's going to happen. So today, obviously, we might say that there is a new normal which has come afterwards. But it would be wrong to discount that period. The reason I say that is not to hark back, but I think it has also shaped people's attitudes. So whether in terms of their personal lives, whether in terms of business, when you've gone through that period, a period of shock, yeah, I think it transforms people's attitude. And I think to some extent that has transformed the world, the way people, you know, uh, digressing a bit, I recall not so pleasant an incident at about now almost more than 30 years back. There was a massive plane crash which happened in Aurangabad, and in which we had six of our colleagues traveling on the same aircraft. And two of them, very strangely, two of them perished immediately, but the four of them were unscathed. They just walked out of the aircraft from behind. And I recall very vividly at the time of the funeral of one of the persons, there were others also present, and so the priest who was conducting the ceremony said this, which has struck with me. He says, the four of you who are here, who have survived this thing, having experienced this, having come so close to death, it was a touch and go. You don't realize how your lives have got transformed. So I think COVID, to that extent, had transformed people. People may or may not realize it totally today or talk about it. So much of, I think, the mindset of people afterwards, to some extent, it was uh, not just a disruption, it was like a break in your consciousness for a period of 2 years and 3 years. And that has shifted a lot for humanity. So many of the things which we are seeing today are reactions, both for good or bad, I would say. If COVID hadn't happened, and if you had the kind of disruption which is happening today in technology, I don't know how people would have responded to it. Maybe the response wouldn't have been the same as it's happening today. The reason being, I think, therefore, one of the biggest things which is underscored, COVID has underscored for people's existence is the fragility of it all, and that there's a very limited time. So people have realized that whatever they need to do, whether for business or in their life, they don't have a huge luxury of time. So that's where you see the kind of the speed of change, the hurry, everything coming. People do not individually or otherwise, people don't think that, okay, I've got 10 years ahead of me, I will do this at a leisurely pace. So people's whole outlook has changed that no, I could be having 10 years, but I need to do something today and tomorrow, because that's not the end of the road. People are also realizing that within 10 years, they may have to reinvent themselves 2 or 3 times more. So it is not a continuum. What you're doing today, you may not be doing, you could be young, you could be old, but you may not be doing the same thing 10 years from now. I'm at a certain stage in life, much older than all of you and much older than many of your viewers. But even for me, if I were to look at next 5 years or 10 years, I don't see that as a straight line, as no longer a linear future. So that's what's a changing attitude. So if you see today, when you're looking at organizations, you're finding that some of the the behemoths, the people who have been, I can talk of an industry which I'm familiar with, which is FMCG. If you see consumer goods, the big giants of FMCG are today being given a run for their money by new kids on the block, people who are doing, direct to consumers, and people who are using e-commerce and everything else much more, and they are having to reinvent the game to compete with them. rather than vice versa, when somebody was a new entrant earlier would have thought that we have to compete with the Nestle's and Unilevers of the world. Today, the tables have turned. Nestle and Unilever constantly have to reinvent themselves to fight with these people. So that is where the change is happening, and that's where when you're talking about without jumping. Maybe it is where organizations like Team Leads, as you are saying, they can bring in a lot of value because for organizations to overnight learn new skills in a large scale becomes difficult. Say, if I have a headcount strength of, let's say, 5,000 people, for me to reskill all the 5,000 people in a matter of few months becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
But if I am able to get, if I'm entering a new field or I'm entering a new geography or even a new area of business, at that point in time, if I can import skills from organizations like Team Leads is one example, then I get that competency overnight into the system. So whereas I maintain a core in which I'm able to utilize those resources overnight over there. So I build the capability in my system to be able to adapt and utilize that. But I cannot possibly be training a team of 5,000 today and then 2 years down the line or 1 year down the line, reskill them totally to move into some other direction. So that is where I think that game is going to change rapidly. And so internally, people are having to become ready to be able to manage those changes. Change has become inevitable. Disruption has become inevitable. But when disruption is inevitable, I can't expect I have all the solutions. And again, I'm getting into a personal analogy. If I were to look at my age, if I try to think that I'm going to be able to acquire some totally new skills, that's nearby impossible. But I may have to, get that skill, whether borrow or get it from outside. But I should be able to manage that. I should be able to manage that and get the best out of it. So that is also a level of competency. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is where you're going into, when you've got me going to say, when you're looking at AI and everything else, when it's coming, what is the biggest challenge of people? It is not to get trained in AI. It is not to get, it's the point is AI is there. How can I make the best use of AI to do whatever I was doing earlier? So, so that is becoming a competency. So, people are therefore learning what are the questions to ask on AI to get the right answers. How do I frame my queries and to get it, rather than trying to say that, okay, I have the solution out there. So that is the change which is happening, I believe. So coming back more specifically, say, I had gone on a sabbatical during COVID and all that. When I came back and I took over my current responsibility, I coined a philosophy of what I call four V's, principles of four V's in the organization. And in the four V's, of course, the first we talked about obviously was vision. And then we talked of value creation, not just value per se. How do you create value, not just for the organization, even for individuals? But the third most important V, which we said, was velocity. And velocity has become extremely key. And when I see sometimes when I'm reading, even this, the top larger companies, the CEOs of, even the new CEO of Unilever, everybody is today talking about velocity because that has become key. So I joined the cement industry about now almost 20 years back. And I remember when I joined Lafarge and Holcim, I had met then the chairman of Lafarge, a French gentleman, Bruno Lefort, and I was talking to him about. Uh, so he had a very kind of almost, uh, I would say, I wouldn't say a complacent, but a blasé approach. He said, "See, we have been in the business for 300 years. We'll last for another 300 years. So we no, we were there when the Suez Canal was built, and we'll probably be there, but that has changed. You see, the Lafarge and Holcim is, Lafarge got merged into Holcim.
Yeah.
Holcim has divested so many of their businesses. The entire world of construction is changing and changing damn fast, um, uh, you know, over there. So nothing you can take for granted. And that, it's no longer the question of agility or flexibility, but it's a question, I say, to be prepared for the
Mm.
unexpected. And again, on a lighter note, like people have to be prepared for what Mr. Trump is going to say tomorrow. People don't really know, but they have to react to it. If he decides to raise your tariff by 50% tomorrow, you just can't say, oh my gosh, you have to be prepared to deal with it tomorrow. And how do you deal with it? It's each day at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely, Yuti. I think you dropped quite a few gems along the way here, starting from saying that COVID had a severe tangible impact, but also had a lot of, below the surface intangible impact itself in terms of changing the behavior of both individuals and organizations alike. Individuals wanted probably more instant gratification, and organizations probably wanted more immediate results. And I think there is a certain hurry and there is a certain urgency with which
Yeah,
everyone
urgency is
seems
the
to.
word rather than hurry is what I'd say. People, it's an urgency. It's much
Yeah.
more.
No, absolutely. Yes, it is urgency for sure. And it's become institutional. And which is why, as you said, velocity has become a very commonly used term now across organizations. And as far as individuals go, it has translated into, much more instant gratification and YOLO attitude and things like that. It's interesting that you said uh, the technology transformation wouldn't probably have happened at the same pace that it did without code, which is true because technology became a necessity. And because, as you said, a lot of consumer goods companies, and since we work with a bunch of them, they found that since they sell essentials, despite the feet on street not being there, the products were still selling. So, how do you really make out who is productive, who is actually adding value, and who isn't? And which is where the question of technology came into the picture. And yes, we as an organization facilitated that and also formalized thousands of people through which it was a potent combination. They were able to actually nail down who and where value is getting created and where it probably just is giving a surface level impression that value is getting created, but it probably isn't happening. Mr. Sandip, I just wanted to also pick your brain on, you spoke about the four V's. There is vision, value creation, velocity, and sorry, what was the fourth one?
Fourth one, we say visibility because people are.
Visibility.
So visibility doesn't mean showing off or wearing, demonstration, but you want to see the action getting translated, whatever you're doing. That
Hmm.
has to be visible to make a difference. And that it is true whether it's for business, whether it is for governments or anywhere else. Because again, if people are looking for change, you want
Hmm.
to see the result, how it is affecting your life. It's no longer enough to say, okay, trust me, it is going to make a difference. So results and visible, again, I'm saying it's not a matter of, it's not a matter of showing off or matter of something which you're doing, but actual tangible difference of what you're doing today should be felt. So there is another term we use in terms of management. We say visible felt leadership. You see, when you're doing
Yeah.
leadership, it has to be also felt by your people.
Yeah.
What's changing? So that is where the fourth V comes in.
Got it. Got it. Sounds perfect. So just taking off of one of the points that you mentioned, I mean, as you said, there is, I mean, there are companies who could get complacent thinking that, what, we've been around for 3, 4 centuries and we'll be around for the next 3, 4 centuries as well. But that's where probably hubris comes into the picture. And there is a very significant resistance to change, which unfortunately gets institutionalized as well. So you being a century plus organization who's remained in the the top few cement companies in India. How do you navigate the situation right now? Because as you said, the level of urgency right now is palpable, and companies are challenged with respect to what their status quo is. So, how do you navigate change and how do you institutionalize agility in this ecosystem, Mr. Ghosh?
So therefore, when I must correct when you're saying a 100-year-old company, we are more than a 100-year-old company, but the business changed. Our company was 100-year-old. It started with, we were the first Indian jute manufacturers. That was the first manufacturing industry in the Birla, larger Birla family and empire. That's where it all started in a place called Birlapur. Before that, all the jute mills were, of foreigners, the Britishers and others had set it up. We were the first Indian jute mill. Uh, Over a period of time, the other businesses which we are in today, in terms of our bread and butter business, is cement. Jute remains a very small part. Now, that is where the interesting thing lies. Not just for us, for the jute industry per se. People have done very little to, innovate, develop that industry in the last. So people, as I said, we were 100 years old, and very remarkably, we are probably the only company which hasn't changed ownership in 100 years. The Britishers left, the foreign companies left, they were taken over by others, and that have gone on changing hands because they had a very, very transactional approach to the business. They had a short-term view, so nobody really invested much in this business. This business was supported by government subsidies, etc., because it employed huge amount of labor. So there's very little, R&D and other things which went into our business. But now, uh, there is a tremendous opportunity which has suddenly arisen, and both due to what is changing in the environment in terms of people's preference for eco-friendly fabric, not in just terms of eco-friendly fabric in terms of what you would say in bags and clothes, but also in geotextiles and other things. People are looking for eco-friendly fabric, but also at the same time, there is technology emerging. When you say something like an AI, AI could have huge application in a jute scenario. Now, jute technology in the last 100 years, again, if you see the jute mills, they're using the same technology which was probably used 100 years ago. But and a lot of the labor is manual in terms of even sorting out, segregating jute, the quality, the finish. All these things can have now today you can have modern technology getting applied for that. R&D can get, so there is a huge opportunity today to reinvent that business, because there is similar kind of development which is happening all over the world with a lot of other natural fibers. And this is something which was traditional here and we have not done. So it is for people who have that vision, who have that commitment. And why a lot of people ask, traditional wisdom had been, oh, your jute is just not even 10% of your total turnover. So why do you keep it? You should have divested it, etc. But we have a different level of commitment on jute. And it is people like us, and there are a few others who have, though they have been later entrants, but they have taken a much more futuristic view of jute. We can actually look at how we reinvent this business. So that is at one level. And then when you're looking at cement, which I said, okay, that's also a place where we have been for 50, 60 years. Now, cement, so far people have looked at, there has been a lot of technology, R&D, etc., has gone into cement, but those are in terms of, how do you reduce reduction of energy consumption, pollution, CO2 emission, and various other things. But what is now the next level of change which you're going to have is in the manner of how construction itself is done, because the whole way of construction is going to change. And there are a lot of innovations which are going to happen at the front end. So you could be producing the basic cement, but that's not where the real game would be. The game would happen ahead in terms of how, because there are two or three things will happen in the front end. One is you will have to have much more eco-friendly construction. You
Yeah.
have to there'll be greater automation and speed of construction will have to increase. So yeah, it's not just for buildings. Today you're hearing how infra, when they're building bridges and roads, how people are talking about doing other stuff like precast and other things. But then you'll have to also, in countries like India, you'll have to go for low-cost housing, low-cost construction, because when there is urbanization, stuff like that happening. So there will be a lot of innovations which are happening ahead. Okay. So how do you get there? Now, to get there, again, bringing back to something could be of interest to you. We manufacture cement. We will manufacture, building material. But the real test would be in its application. And
Mm.
before it goes in for application, you have to have trained manpower. You have to have trained. It's no longer the good old days of what you use as construction laborers and people. These people have to also get skilled.
Yeah.
And where do the skilled people come from? We cannot be getting into the skilling game of skilling thousands and lakhs of workers who will be involved in the construction sector using making construction with these modern. So that's where, again, there has to be how the business model is going to develop. I'm not clear.
Mm.
Will be organizations coming up, not just the construction company, but construction companies will also have to scale up. In a lot of places, they're today finding difficulty to even get labor, even for normal construction. But when your whole, the methodology changes, you need a different order of construction, labor workforce over there. And so that'll, and some of these changes will happen pretty fast, Bala.
Yeah.
I go and see in down South India. I have a place in the hills, the Nilgiris. There, I'm finding a lot of people are today moving away from RCC construction to using concrete boards and things just like abroad, and that's coming up quickly. It's cheaper,
Yeah.
more flexible. The change will be pretty rapid.
No, I think that is highly relatable as well. I remember back in 2014, we had a time crunch. I was helping this consumer goods company construct their new snacks factory in Thailand. And because of this time crunch, and because you know how intense their monsoon as well over there is, they use these PFBs, prefabricated boards, those sort of buildings, steel boards, etc. And it didn't really need a construction company. It just required a company of a very different sort, because I was a supply chain consultant for that project. And as you said, the threat of substitution seems to be much higher these days than just the threat of a direct competitor from the same industry itself, because you don't really know where the next disruption is going to come from. As you said, many of these consumer goods companies have spent a century plus, or at least several decades, in building their muscle in distribution. But now D2C companies with quick commerce is just that potent combination which has completely bypassed this entire ecosystem, right? So they're not really competing with you, they're not playing your game, they're just playing a very different game altogether, and they've taken the whole ecosystem by storm. So that is one, I think, really important aspect. So just to just harp a little bit more on the point that you mentioned with respect to prefabricated boards being used as a substitute rather than the typical raw material and process and building and so on and so forth, that already is getting adopted in a big way. And if you feel that 3D printing is also going to come up and get more sort of commercialized in a big way, do you really think that could uh, spawn a whole new ecosystem altogether which can challenge these component manufacturers, I mean materials manufacturers?
It would, but material manufacture, see, all these material will be having a certain component. The whole, shall we say, the value chain will undergo a certain change. Okay, so
Hmm.
you may be having, even within this, you may be using cement. You could be using other construction, but along with that, there would be other stuff coming in, whether it's polymers, whether it is different kinds of
Hmm.
boards and things like that. So the point is, how do you integrate? If I have to get, if I'm just one more supplier of only cement in that, then that doesn't get me value. So I have to be, forward integrated, not in the sense of my actually making some of that, but whosoever is making it, with that we get forward integrated so that we are offering the final solution to the end customer.
Yeah.
When people were talking about earlier low-cost housing in our country, what they essentially meant was, to some extent, get cheap land, get
Mm.
into areas where land was cheaper, and you cut down on the construction cost by cutting a few corners in terms of all the bells and whistles, what you do to make deliver houses at a lower cost. But that won't get people that far. You have to, on both sides, if you have to really be a game changer, the costs have to change dramatically. So today, the kind, say, a government is spending on the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana for 1.5
Mm.
lakhs, what they're delivering, if they have to speed it up, they'll have to be able to make many more houses within that small, short period of time, in that quick span, to make a difference to the people, but also then change the way of construction by which the cost of building the houses, and that's where new technology will come in, and embracing new technology. And to some extent, I don't know how far it'll get. Our Prime Minister had started six kind of models of looking at from all over the world, five or six models, I forget how many, of different kinds of affordable housing construction systems. So some of
Mm.
those will come, some indigenous systems will come, and
Mm.
that again, as we are saying, it's no longer, things will not happen as if today we are talking, and when you talk to somebody 10 years later, it'll happen. You might have that happening even 1 year later, or less than that when you're talking to somebody else. Some of this may actually start taking off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think um, one thing which you had mentioned, which was intriguing, but I didn't fully understand. I want to just touch upon that, and then probably we can move on to your closing remarks, sir. And you've described automation with the metaphor: one man, one machine, and one dog. The man feeds the dog, and the dog ensures the man doesn't touch the machine. What insights does this provide on the evolving human-machine partnership, and what is its implication for the future of work?
See, it's not my original quote. This has been a quote around for a long time, but I made that in a particular seminar to illustrate the point, and more so in the context of when you're talking of AI and everything else, when you're talking today, or so everywhere, at that point in time, people didn't anticipate what, say, AI could do in the shop floor also. Okay,
Mm.
people only talked of robots and other things, but it's not robots. So AI could change the way a lot of things is happening. But the point would be, just like you know how to manage a dog. If your dog, if somebody has to handle a dog, somebody has to be there to also manage AI. And that's what I keep saying, that AI may be having a huge amount of capability, but there'll be somebody there to manage it, and we can get distracted onto as we say, AI is not going to replace human beings, but how the nature of work of human beings will change. You see,
Yeah.
if earlier, getting into basics, if industrial revolution had changed the way the man-machine equation, okay, all the hard labor was taken over by the machine, and men started looking at much more, whether it's a blue collar, from blue collar to white collar jobs and things like that, which had changed. If first level of IT revolution had changed certain things, taking the chore out of, whether it's your accounting and other stuff, then digital revolution did something. Now, what AI is going to do, it's again from the brain. It'll release a lot of our bandwidth from the brain to do things which are routine and predictable. So you have to be able to apply your mind to do things which are much more creative, and So that is what the difference. So the ability to think, ability to
Mm.
creative thinking, in being able to connect the dots and get the solution out of that. That is what will add value. Again, if I go back to my four V's, the second V, creation of value, will come through that.
Yeah,
Creation of value will not come by my doing something faster or something more. How I connect the dots and create the changes, as you said, or D2C created that. It is not that making your B2C much more efficient,
yeah,
but it is totally changing the game because suddenly your digitization was available to you. You changed the way the business was being done. Earlier, people would have tried to see, oh, I have a B2C. How do I make my distribution system more efficient? Can I use, IT, etc., to make my go-to-market cheaper? But if your entire concept of go-to-market changes through, as you're saying, quick commerce, etc., and the
yeah,
people who will be able to use that and the people who are using it, even at a not necessarily at a very strategic at the top level, but the way people will have to apply this knowledge, even at the front end, at the coal face,
mm,
will be very, very different. Okay, so
yeah,
and there the key, again, going back to what I keep saying, you will have to reskill people to adapt to these changes
yeah,
very frequently. You see, some people make a mistake of earlier people would say, oh, we need to get more computer literate people in the system. Uh, Today, that's not the solution by saying, oh, I have to get more AI literate people in the system. If you
mm,
get assuming AI literate people today, today's AI is going to be very different from tomorrow's AI is going to be extremely different from today's AI.
yeah,
So you mean
yeah,
that
yeah,
tomorrow after, and that'll happen damn fast. So it's not that today you got a new set of people who are conversant with today's AI, and then after 2 years you say you're redundant. I get another set of people who know, ChatGPT 5, then ChatGPT 10 will come. I need to have another set of people. You have to train your current set of people to be able to handle that. And in organizations like ours, which are more, legacy or historic organization, our challenge will be not to throw the baby with the bathwater and say, okay, everybody
mm,
who is there, you're today redundant, you're today out of date, and we need a new breed. My challenge would be how I train them, say that, hey,
yeah,
hang on, this is nothing great difficult, and and it's much easier than you are too young to know. It would be much easier to train them in these developments, like you see how people have got trained so easily on managing a UPI or digital payment, okay, as opposed to earlier. If you ask somebody to go and enter somebody onto net banking, they wouldn't probably be able
yeah,
to do
oh,
that. Today, the same railway ticket booking, people can do it on an app much faster. So like that is changing. So today, training people on AI would be much more easier than if you were to earlier try to train even your account staff to learn Excel. That would have been a far more difficult exercise than teaching somebody to handle an app on the phone.
very well said. I mean, as you said, you can't throw the baby out to the bathwater thinking that, you know what, now I need a completely different recipe. So I need different ingredients as well. So let me get rid of these people. I'll just somehow magically identify another set of people who are probably going to come in and change the world for me. That's really not going to work. But also, sir, what do you think about the fact that unfortunately there is a lot of vested interest maybe within the organization itself which resists change, right? I mean, change for good or for bad, people are unable to visualize the future, and hence, they might resist initiatives like this, especially in a very large and very old and very successful organization. So what, if you could tell me, could be a CEO's mantra in terms of introducing a culture of being ready to change constantly and adapt yourself?
See, this is, I think, again, I'll put it at the risk of sounding simplistic. I feel that this has become much, much more easier. As I was giving you a very mundane example, if I had to earlier tell people, oh, go and sit down and learn how to operate an Excel, Even somebody were to tell me, I would find that very, very tedious, boring, or I say, okay, I'm too old to do that. I'd rather get somebody else to do that job for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
today, when my daughter or somebody introduces me to a new app and shows me, I find it so easy, and sometimes I find it so exciting to do that. I immediately take on to it. Okay. And
Mm.
that is what I am finding also in the workplace. Say, I'll give you again specific example. There are, if you see in the sales system, earlier the Salesforce.com or the CRM packages came. Now, when we try to introduce them, it was a humongous effort in change management, and people
Mm.
find a lot of resistance because people said, "Oh, हमारा तो पूरा दिन चले जाता है just form fill up करने में." You know how, and that stage also, your internet availability was slow, and in fact, all these people had to develop systems which could be done online, offline, because they also recognized that in some remote areas you could not get connectivity and all that. But now all that has dramatically disappeared because today nobody is trying to enter it over there. You're doing it on an app. And a lot
Yeah.
of these apps are even, when people down the line are doing that, they are not even, they don't have to be literate. It's some of them are voice operated. Okay. Over there and through which you can communicate. So people are finding that damn easy to do, and people are jumping onto it rather, and that has been a revolution. And I think this revolution is going to increase more and more with generative AI and other things, which will become accessible to ordinary people in some form. You'll find them taking to it much faster than giving people the taste. I'm finding is easy, and that's where probably senior management will have to play the role of evangelists.
Mm.
They have to exude that degree of excitement uh, over there, to be able to do that. I had, very interestingly, I had met some time back one of our ministers, central minister, they don't want to take his name. He came from one part of the country where people are very earthy. And I found his communication was very strong. He was talking to a group of industry leaders. So he said, see, आपके पास vision है, मेरा
Mm.
पास passion है.
Mm.
हमको कुछ पता नहीं है कि ये इंडस्ट्री कैसा चलता है, but I have the passion and I can
Mm.
only say ऐसा करिए. ऐसा करने से ऐसा होगा तो करके दिखाना आपका. I don't have the knowledge. So the same thing will happen for top management people. They have to exude that passion. They have to exude that infectious enthusiasm and be evangelists. And that is what is going to make change happen.
This is phenomenal, but I mean, unfortunately I've seen many organizations where the senior management just push things down to the bottom and say, "Tu kar le." I don't want to get into all
Oh, it
this.
is happening.
It's a
It's very,
problem.
very surprising. I find, I'll give you an example even in our organization. With AI coming, our IT person took initiative in introducing, familiarizing people in the plants and in the sales teams, etc., on AI. My senior leadership team, called the E team, they told them that, hey, you must start from the top, because if we don't know, how are we going to, if we don't know what is the power of AI, what is the capability, how are we going to support them? So you must educate us at the
Mm.
same time. No point in just educating them and they coming back and telling us. So that is a change which is happening. As you said earlier, if I've known people, if they had to even type an email, a lot of people would say, let my secretary do it, or
Mm.
or do an Excel sheet. Will ask my somebody in accounts to go and do or fill up my income tax forms or whatever it is. But people today are managing their own bank account on the app, and they
Yeah.
would rather not give the detail to somebody else to handle. Whereas earlier you gave away all your bank statements, everything to somebody else to handle. Today, you do it on your own. Um,
Yeah.
you know, My secretary gives me the bills I have to pay. He just gives me a list of them, and then I just do it in the car or wherever because I can just do it because these are all programmed. But earlier, I would tell him to do it. He'll make the checks, bring it to me, and get it signed. Today, every time I have to sign a check, I have to ask him to get me my specimen signature because I've stopped signing checks for so long. 90% of the time, my signatures don't tally. So the rare occasion when I have to sign a check, I say, please bring out my specimen signature. I'll see that and sign the check because the game has changed.
As they say, culture starts from the top and so does change. So that brings us to the end of this, Mr. Sandeep. I just want to hear maybe if you have any closing remarks on what are the two or three guidelines or inputs you would want to give to CEOs for navigating economic uncertainty and market disruptions.
As I've always said, CEOs must realize that they don't have all the answers. Um, and all of us have to go through our share of sleepless nights and tension. And we should, and there are no shortcuts. I was reading this book on, AI called
Yeah,
Co-Intelligence, and
right.
he is Ethan Malik,
Mm.
and he said something, the first sentence, I really think it is, he said, I believe the cost of getting to know AI and really getting to know AI is at least 3 sleepless nights. That is the start of, and I think we should all be prepared for many sleepless nights to navigate the present world. I said, see, learning today, you don't have the luxury of saying, I'll stop learning
Oh
today.
yeah.
Even at 80,
Oh
you'll have to learn and learn, seriously learn. It is not that
yeah.
you're doing it out of luxury or your
Yes.
curiosity. To stay abreast, we'll all have to do that all the way. And
Yeah.
that's the name of the game. Thank you.